Most people think the right connection will enter their life like a soft song, easy, sweet, clear from the first second, but that is almost never how a life-changing bond begins. The real sign is not instant peace. It is a deep inner shift you cannot explain. Something in you wakes up before your mind can even form the words. You meet someone and instead of feeling only calm, you feel pulled, exposed, challenged. It is almost like life presses pause and says, "Pay attention, this matters." That is why the strongest connections often do not start with comfort. They start with disruption. They stir emotions you thought were buried. They bring questions you were avoiding. They shake patterns you had learned to call normal. And here is the part most people miss, so stay with me because this changes everything. When two people carry a bond that is meant to transform them, life often refuses to make it easy at first. It creates distance. It creates timing problems. It creates fear, silence, confusion, and missed chances. Not because the connection is false, but because something inside both people still needs to change. Real love is not always a soft beginning. Sometimes it arrives like a mirror. Sometimes it arrives like a storm. Sometimes it arrives only to break the life you were living so you can finally build the one that is true. If a connection has ever shaken you in that way, then you already know this is not about fantasy. It is about change. And the one thing that keeps happening again and again is this. Before two people can truly come together, they are often forced to grow apart first. The first sign of a powerful connection is often recognition, not relief. You see them, and something inside you responds before you can explain why. It is not always dramatic on the outside. Sometimes it is quiet. A look, a sentence, a strange feeling of being understood too quickly. But inside, something moves, and that movement can feel uncomfortable. Why? Because deep connections do not only touch your best parts, they touch your hidden parts too. They bring light to the places where you still feel fear, shame, doubt, or emotional hunger. They show you the version of yourself that smiles in public and the version that still hurts in private. That is why these bonds feel intense. They do not just make you feel wanted, they make you feel seen, and being truly seen can feel beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Listen carefully because many people walk away at this stage and call it a bad sign. They assume that if something feels unsettling, it must be wrong. But often the opposite is true. The discomfort is there because the connection is reaching deeper than your usual relationships ever did. It is touching old wounds. It is waking up old beliefs. It is forcing you to ask questions most people spend years avoiding. Why do I fear closeness? Why do I need so much reassurance? Why do I hide my real feelings? Why do I accept less than I deserve? This is why strong connections do not always feel peaceful in the beginning. They bring awareness before they bring security. They reveal the cracks before they build the foundation. And that first stage, as confusing as it feels, is often where the real story begins. This is also why people who are deeply tied to each other do not always stay together at the start. In fact, many of the strongest bonds are interrupted early. Life steps in, distance appears, timing falls apart. One person is still healing, the other is still running. One is afraid to open up, the other is afraid to be left. One may still confuse longing with love, the other may still confuse silence with strength, so the connection pauses, breaks, or slips away, and to the outside world it looks like failure. But from a deeper view, it is preparation. Because when two unfinished people come together too soon, they often hurt each other even if the feeling is real. They project their fears. They test each other. They cling. They pull away. They love through wounds instead of through wholeness. So life says, not yet. Not because the bond has no meaning, but because it has too much meaning to be built on unstable ground. This part hurts more than ordinary heartbreak because it does not feel like a simple ending. It feels unfinished. It feels like a door closed while something important was still happening. That confusion is what keeps people awake at night. They are not only grieving the person, they are grieving the version of themselves that woke up in that connection. And this is where everything starts turning inward. The separation becomes a teacher. It shows you your patterns. It reveals where you abandon yourself just to feel chosen. It shows you where you beg for clarity instead of standing in your worth. It forces you to face the truth that love cannot be healthy if you are trying to earn it by losing yourself. When a bond like this pulls away, the pain does more than break your heart. It exposes your emotional habits. You begin to notice how strongly you fear rejection. You see how often you seek validation from people who are emotionally unavailable. You realize how easily you overgive just to keep someone close. You notice how much of your self-worth depends on being desired, answered, pursued, or chosen. These truths are not pleasant, but they are necessary, because pain is not always there to destroy you. Sometimes it is there to wake you up. Sometimes it is the alarm you kept snoozing for years. And this is where the connection becomes bigger than romance. It starts changing your inner life. Even without contact, even with silence, even if months pass, something keeps moving inside you. You become more aware of what drains you. You become less willing to accept mixed signals. You begin to respect your own boundaries. You stop romanticizing inconsistency. You start noticing that attention is not the same as care, and chemistry is not the same as safety. Stay with me, because this is where many people misunderstand what is happening. They think they are stuck on a person, but often they are actually moving through a transformation that person triggered. The bond acted like a switch. It turned something on inside you. It started a process that could not be reversed. Now you want more honesty, more depth, more truth, more peace. You can no longer return to shallow versions of love because something in you has already tasted a deeper emotional reality. Whether the person comes back or not, the awakening has already begun. And once that awakening begins, your old life starts to feel too small for who you are becoming. As time passes, the change becomes quieter but stronger. You stop chasing every message, every sign, every possibility. Your focus slowly shifts. You start thinking less about what they are doing and more about what your own life is asking from you. You become more honest with yourself. You see where you have been settling. You see where you have been performing instead of living. You see where you accepted confusion because you were afraid of emptiness. And little by little, your standards rise, not from pride, from clarity. You begin to value peace over drama, effort over promises, and truth over fantasy. You stop confusing intensity with compatibility. You stop mistaking emotional hunger for destiny. And that is a powerful turning point, because this kind of growth does not make you cold. It makes you clear. It does not make you love less. It makes you love better. And here is the strange thing. Often you do not even realize that this growth began the moment that person entered your life. They did not just give you feelings, they gave you reflection. They showed you where your heart still needed healing. They revealed where your life was out of alignment. They forced you to ask bigger questions. Who am I when no one is choosing me? What do I actually need? What kind of love honors my dignity instead of testing it? These questions change everything. This is why meaningful bonds stay with you in quiet ways. Not because you are weak, not because you cannot move on, but because the experience keeps unfolding long after the contact ends. It keeps teaching. It keeps exposing, it keeps shaping your next decisions. And in that sense, the connection never really disappears. It becomes part of your inner structure. It becomes one of the reasons you finally stop betraying yourself. Many people try to replace a connection like this as quickly as possible. They meet someone new, they stay busy, they talk, laugh, date, distract themselves, and tell themselves they are over it. Sometimes it even looks true from the outside. Their life seems normal again. Their routine comes back. Their smile comes back. Their schedule fills up. But underneath all that motion, something still feels unfinished. There is a quiet emptiness they cannot explain. It is not always because the new person is wrong. It is because the new connection does not touch the same depth. It does not awaken the same level of truth. A deeply transformative bond is not built on attraction alone. It is not just about excitement, comfort, or timing. It reaches your inner life. It changes how you see yourself. It confronts your soul, if you want to call it that. And once you have felt that kind of mirror, ordinary attention can start to feel thin. This does not mean you are meant to wait forever for one person. It means you are no longer satisfied by what is surface level. You now know that real connection must do more than entertain you. It must tell the truth. It must call you higher. It must feel emotionally honest. This is an important difference. So if you ever wondered why some people cannot simply be replaced, this is why. It is not about obsession. It is about impact. It is about the fact that some connections arrive to wake parts of you that had been asleep for years. And once those parts wake up, your heart cannot pretend anymore. It wants something real. It wants a love that is not built on fear, confusion, or performance. It wants a love that can stand in the light. While the two people are apart, life often teaches each of them different lessons. One person may be learning boundaries. They begin to understand that love does not mean overgiving. They learn that saying no is not cruel. They learn that choosing themselves is not selfish. They learn that being available all the time does not create closeness. It often creates imbalance. The other person may be learning accountability. They start to see that silence has consequences, that avoidance hurts, that feelings do not disappear just because they are ignored. That connection needs effort, courage, and emotional honesty. One person learns to stop chasing, the other learns to stop running. One learns self-respect, the other learns vulnerability. One learns that uncertainty is not romance. The other learns that distance does not protect them from loss. And neither person can fully see the whole picture while it is happening. That is part of the process. Growth usually happens in pieces, not all at once. It happens through hard conversations, lonely nights, repeated patterns, and moments of painful clarity. It happens when old beliefs start falling apart. Beliefs like love should always be easy. Beliefs like if someone cares, they will never leave. Beliefs like suffering proves depth. Beliefs like another person can complete what you have not healed inside yourself. These ideas feel comforting at first, but they damage real love. So life removes them slowly and sometimes painfully. It strips away fantasy and forces truth to stand in the room alone, and truth can feel sharp before it feels freeing. But this is the stage where real maturity begins. This is the stage where love stops being a survival strategy and starts becoming a conscious choice. Then one day, something subtle shifts. You stop needing the outcome you once begged for. You stop waiting for a message to rescue your life. You stop checking for hidden signs in every silence. You stop building your future around whether someone returns. And the strange thing is, this does not feel bitter. It feels calm. It feels clean. It feels like coming back to yourself. This is where real change becomes visible. You are no longer trying to force what was meant to happen naturally. You are no longer trying to prove your value by being chosen. You begin to understand that love is not dependence. It is not emotional survival. It is not a desperate need for someone to fill your empty spaces. Real love is choice. Real love is alignment. Real love happens when two people can stand on their own feet and still choose to meet each other honestly. And this is where life often starts moving again. Not because you finally suffered enough, not because you controlled the outcome, but because you let go of the need to control it. That surrender changes your energy. It makes you clearer, more grounded, less reactive, more real. If a connection returns at this stage, it can return differently, with less chaos, less ego, less performance. And if it does not return, you still win something important. You keep the growth. You keep the self-respect. You keep the emotional maturity that pain helped build. This is why letting go is not losing. Sometimes letting go is the exact moment your life opens. Sometimes it is the moment you stop shrinking for love and start becoming someone who can truly receive it. If two people do meet again after real inner work, the connection often feels completely different. Not louder, not more dramatic, just steadier. There is less fear in the body, less tension in the mind, less need to impress, test, or protect. What rises instead is honesty, simplicity, presence. The bond feels calmer because both people have already met their own chaos in private. They have seen their own shadows. They have faced the parts of themselves that once created confusion. So now there is less performance and more truth. Fewer games, fewer hidden motives, more direct words, more respect for silence, more respect for boundaries, more consistency, more emotional responsibility. It is not perfect, and it does not pretend to be perfect, but it is conscious, it is mature, it does not feed on uncertainty, it does not need constant proof, it feels like recognition with strength behind it. And still, here is the hard truth many people need to hear. Sometimes even after all this growth, those two people do not come back together, and that does not mean the bond was fake. It does not mean it was wasted. It does not mean you imagined it. Some connections are meant to stay, some are meant to return, and some are only meant to awaken you, redirect you, and leave. Their purpose is not permanence, their purpose is transformation. They come into your life, shake your inner world, expose what needed healing, and then disappear once the lesson is alive inside you. That can be heartbreaking, yes, but it can also be sacred, because not everything meaningful is meant to last forever in the same form. Some things are important because of what they open in you, not because of how long they remain. There are also different kinds of life-changing connections, and not all of them teach the same lesson. Some arrive to break old family patterns you did not even realize you were carrying. They show you where love became tied to sacrifice, guilt, silence, or emotional instability. They reveal where you learned to work for affection instead of receiving it freely. These bonds bring buried pain to the surface so it can finally be healed instead of repeated. Other connections come to teach self-love. Through them, you see how often you settle, how often you make yourself smaller to stay acceptable, how often you abandon your own needs so someone else will not leave. That realization hurts, but it is powerful. Because once you see it clearly, you cannot pretend anymore. You begin to understand that love should not cost you your dignity, your voice, or your peace. Some people awaken emotional depth in you. They make you feel again after years of numbness. They remind you that your heart is still alive, still capable of deep care, still capable of real vulnerability. Even if they leave you more open than before. And some connections redirect your whole life path. Meeting them changes your standards, your decisions, your direction, your future. They may never stay beside you, but they still become part of the reason your life changes course. So no, not every meaningful bond is here to become a forever relationship. But that does not make it small. It may have come to prepare you for the life and love that come next. And preparation is not lesser than possession. In many cases, preparation is the deeper gift. People often ask why destiny or life or whatever name you want to use seems so harsh before it becomes clear. Why does something meaningful arrive with so much confusion? Why does it feel like things are being taken away before anything better appears? The answer is difficult but simple. Life is not always protecting your comfort. It is often protecting your potential. Comfort can keep you trapped in patterns that are familiar but harmful. Comfort can keep you choosing the same kind of almost love again and again. Comfort can keep you asleep. So sometimes life interrupts what feels good in the moment because it sees what that path would cost you in the long run. It allows your heart to break before it allows your deeper self to disappear under compromise, fear, and self-betrayal. In the moment, that can feel cruel. You replay conversations, you question your worth, you wonder what you did wrong. You think if only you had said less, given more, waited longer, been softer, been stronger, been different, maybe it would have stayed. But time reveals what pain cannot explain right away. With distance, you begin to see how staying in the old pattern would have kept you small. You begin to see how the ending forced growth you were avoiding, and then the central truth becomes clear. When two people are deeply tied in a meaningful way, they are often separated so false ideas can fall apart. They are pushed into distance so they can meet themselves. They are taken through silence so they can hear their own truth. That space is not always punishment. Sometimes it is the workshop where your next self is being built. During that space, you learn lessons no one else can live for you. You learn boundaries, not as walls that shut people out, but as signs that protect your energy and honor your worth. You learn self-respect that does not depend on being praised, chased, or chosen. You learn that being wanted by someone means very little if you are abandoning yourself in the process. You learn that loving deeply does not require losing your identity. You learn that your wholeness cannot be outsourced. No one can hand it to you through attention, affection, or approval. It has to rise from within. And once this inner work begins, life starts revealing what comes next. Sometimes that next step leads to reunion. Two people meet again with fewer illusions, stronger boundaries, and clearer hearts. Sometimes the path leads somewhere else entirely, toward another person, another purpose, another kind of life that fits who you have become. Either way, you do not come out unchanged. Something essential shifts. You are not the same person you were when the story first began. And that is why you no longer need to chase. You no longer need to force. What is real does not demand that you shrink, betray yourself, or live in constant anxiety. What truly belongs in your life may challenge you, yes, but it will not require self-erasure. It will ask for honesty. It will ask for courage. It will ask for growth. But it will not ask you to disappear. And if someone does not return, that is not always a sign of failure. Sometimes the connection completed its work. Sometimes it taught what it came to teach. Sometimes it prepared your heart to finally recognize love in a healthier form. So if you are thinking about someone while hearing these words, do not rush to label it obsession, weakness, or failure. Ask a deeper question. What changed in me because of this connection? What did it expose? What did it heal? What did it refuse to let me keep ignoring? Maybe it showed you your fear of abandonment. Maybe it showed you your tendency to chase emotionally unavailable people. Maybe it showed you that you were starving for depth while pretending to be fine with crumbs. Maybe it showed you that your heart had been asleep. Whatever it revealed, it mattered. And that is the real point. The deepest connections are not about possession. They are about transformation. They arrive when you are ready or when life needs to make you ready. They break comfort so truth can enter. They disturb old beliefs so healthier ones can grow. They may leave pain behind, but they also leave clarity, wisdom, and a stronger relationship with yourself. Nothing is wasted. Not the tears. Not the waiting. Not the confusion. Not the lesson. What feels like rejection may be redirection. What feels like loss may be alignment. What feels like the end may be the doorway to a deeper and more honest life. So be patient with the process. Do not force what needs time. Do not chase what needs space. Do not measure your worth by who stayed or who left. The real question is not only who was meant for you. The real question is who you became because life crossed your path with theirs. And if you can see that clearly, then the story, however it ends, has already given you something powerful. It gave you back to yourself.